My name is Daniel Miller. We're in Waikiki on the island of Oahu, Hawaii. I grew up kind of halfway on the Big Island and halfway on a town out here called Waianae, the west side of this island. East side is kind of the rich side of this island. West side's kind of, the country, more the locals. East side also Waimanalo, Kailua, Kaneohe. Kailua's kind of been overbought already, and not necessarily developed, but bought out by rich people. The beaches are nice out there. The North Shore is still kind of country also. They've stopped almost all development out there. So you still got a lot of the locals out there who are, in the underground. But poverty, in town you have the projects, Mayor Rights, Camp 4, KPT, a lot of the Kalihi areas, Halolo out here in town. There's some areas, even in the nice areas, but mainly those areas, Central, Halava. Those are the central areas of the ghettos. Not necessarily ghettos like you would think of in the mainland, but those are the lower income areas. Mayor Rights, Camp 4, KPT, those are, a lot of Samoans, a lot of Polynesians, a lot of just a different type of crowd there. It's just a different type of mentality than if you were, at the apartments in Kaimuki somewhere or something like that. It's just totally different type of people. So I wouldn't say, you couldn't compare it to anywhere in, the ghettos of California or, somewhere in the mainland. It's not even close. But there are people who are, in Hawaii, there's some tough people out here. We all gotta live here, but at the same time, it's kind of like just your own people, You're gonna be pretty much loyal to your own people, it's your own kind. But at the same time, it's just human nature, pride. You live here and you're with these guys and you hang with these guys, and, mostly when you're growing up and you're learning that type of lifestyle, until you go to prison and you really see that none of that matters when you go there. When you go to prison, it's like, so what if you're from here or you're from there? You're either with us or you're with those guys, So to me, that's where if you're gonna be in gangs and you're gonna be out here doing that type of stuff and you're gonna go to prison and you're gonna get funneled into what what it really comes down to, and that's pretty much race. I never really was into the gangs. I grew up in my family was kind of like one of the biggest bike clubs here. So bike clubs were not really gangs, but groups of guys, local guys that rolled together and they stuck together and they networked together. They all have different businesses, they all help each other out. So being from the Big Island, there's a lot of the bigger bike clubs over there, and I was approached to join each club, and I just didn't feel like I could be loyal to any one club without still having my friends and being straight up with everyone. So I never joined any bike club, I never joined any clubs. I just kind of did what I did on my own. Everybody thought I was either Portuguese, Hawaiian, or I was haole. I was a haole because I'm white, pretty much. It's changed a lot now. It was a lot worse back then, but when I moved to Waianae, I was like a haole, haole.
What does that mean, actually?
Just white boy, white or whatever. It's supposed to mean like foreigner or whatever, outsider, but just haole. It's just something they learned growing up, just a slang, or just something you call some dude, some white boy.
You look like you're like indigenous, though. You don't look like a white boy to me.
Yeah, to the mainland, white,
Yeah.
but out here, plus I'm a lot darker now, but growing up, when I was young, I'm Japanese Caucasian, with some Native American, so I don't look Polynesian, So if you don't look Polynesian and you look Portuguese or white looking, you're kind of like haole. I've heard stories, they'd have like Kill Haole Day, like there's like a day where they just mess with the haoles, and all that stuff, but I never really experienced that, because I guess there was a lot of, the first school I was at on the Big Island that I went to, KL, had a lot of haole kids, hippies, lot of hippies on the Big Island. A lot of white people move there, and there's cheap land. You know, they move there from the mainland, and so there's a lot of white people there. But in Waianae, not too many. Not too many. It's either Portuguese, Hawaiian, Portuguese mix. So you know, those were the ethnicities that were migrated here. Was Portuguese, Japanese, Filipino, who worked in the plantations years ago. So yeah, mainly I think on the Big Island there was a lot of sugar cane, a lot of plantations, and a lot of Filipino plantations. So a lot of Filipinos, not too much Samoans on the Big Island.
So what do you think it was that caused you to kind of get in a little bit of minor trouble when you was a teenager living here on the island?
Just mainly drug use, not my own drug use, but older family members, people around me, and just kind of falling into the habitual, just the same routines of drug dealing, drug use, having drugs around. On the Big Island, there's a lot of marijuana, like growing for years outdoor. People have been growing weed, like, you know, all over. So that was kind of like normal. So when I grew up, it was just illegal, or is it just wrong if you got caught? You know, it wasn't wrong for any reason. I didn't know why it was right or wrong. I just knew, you know, if you get caught, you're gonna go to jail. So that's what makes it wrong if you get caught. I didn't know the reasoning behind that. You know, I was a kid, so just kind of following what the older people were doing, and I just did what, you know, I thought they were doing. I mean, marijuana was everywhere back in the day. And so I didn't understand how there was such a major market up in the mainland, you know, and how crazy it was, because it was just like everybody had marijuana when I was growing up. Everybody. Might not have been the best stuff, I don't know, I didn't compare it, but everyone had weed at all times on the Big Island.
So what are some of the drugs that impacted the community when you were coming up, and what is it like today?
It was definitely ice. Ice was, it still is the most damaging drug, you know, in Hawaii. As far as, I've seen like complete teardowns of families, and, you know, just disasters, and, you know, as far as people's lives, just successful people, normal people, just losing everything, losing their families, losing everything they've ever worked for, being addicted to the drug, and committing crimes just to feed their habit. So I think ice mainly, I've seen the greatest damage.
So I take it there's a lot of money in selling that here.
There used to be. I don't know. I've heard now that it's like practically, you know, it's compared to what it was, it's like a fraction, like, you know, in the 10% range of what it used to be at one point. So, I mean, back in the 90s, I've heard it up to 50, 60,000 for a pound, you know, of ice, of actual ice. And now it's, you know, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000 probably, you know, between 5,000 and 10,000. I mean, I hear it's so cheap, you know, up in the mainland. It's just, the stuff is just, it's like free. It's just not, it's crazy. There were people who were trying to make it back in the day when the ingredients were more available. I'm sure it's probably, you could make it, but I think that the ingredients in Mexico and those types of places are so much cheaper and easier to get a hold of, that they don't forever be made, you know, in those places. It's just not worth it. It's cheaper to just buy it from them, I think, you know, and just bring it here. But almost all drugs, besides marijuana, if you're growing it here, are brought into Hawaii. I mean, there's only one way, you know, to bring it in, and that in itself is a huge percentage of the reason why people are being incarcerated, is a trafficking into Hawaii. Not so much, you know, it hurts our economy because the money leaves and goes back out of Hawaii, and I think that's one of the points why there's such a big budget on the federal and state side to try to stop ICE and drugs being imported. But mainly ICE destroying the communities and the crime rates. You know, this is paradise. It's supposed to be paradise, and when you see somebody walking down the street talking themselves high on ice and, you know, breaking their cars, it's just, nobody wants that. You know, nobody wants that anywhere, but especially here, we don't want it here. My first time I got in trouble, you know, major trouble, probably about 18. It was in the state. It was an armed robbery. had involved a semi-automatic weapon, and it was a 15 mandatory. And then I had couple of theft charges, stupid stuff. But during that time that I was on bail, I was, selling drugs and doing stupid things, and I had hooked up with a friend who knew someone from the mainland who was supposedly bringing down cocaine. It was during a really hard time to find cocaine. It was during the late 90s when they were busting all the tunnels coming through. The prices were skyrocketing. And I had offered to buy a kilo. I put up the money, and two of my friends went to go do the deal, and they got picked up. And it was a reverse sting. And one of them about 6 months after the whole case went down, one of them testified before the grand jury, got me indicted. And when the feds picked me up, it was a 1 kilo of powder cocaine, attempt to possess with intent to distribute, and conspiracy to distribute, or to possess with intent to distribute. So it was 5-year mandatory charges, not really big charges in the feds, max 5 years, average 3-year sentences. And I had 3 paid attorneys, 2 in the state, 1 in the feds, and they all worked together, and I got sentenced to the feds and went out to the state on a writ, got sentenced to the state. They ran them concurrent, and then I shot off to the mainland, where everyone pretty much does their time for 5 years or more. And I did my first bid. I did about 3 years, got the drug program, got a year off, 6 months halfway house, and came home. Once I pled guilty to the feds, they sentenced me 60 months mandatory minimum. They took me to the state. I was going to go to trial. I sat there for about 3-4 months to go to trial. State laws are a little bit different than the feds. The feds run off a point system based upon the amount of drugs that you have, the weight, the quantity, and the type of drug falls in a category. So the feds is just cut and dry. I mean, you're going to get exactly what you're going to get. If your drug carries a mandatory minimum, you're going to get the mandatory minimum unless it's your first offense or you cooperate. In that case, it was still my first offense, but I didn't cooperate, so I got 60 months. I went to the state. I was going to go to trial. They had pretty much a really weak case on me back then. There was just one witness. He was an illegal alien from Peru. I think he was a minor still. He might have been a minor still. At that point, they just made me a deal. They offered me an open 10. They dropped the violence. My attorney told me just take it and just go do your time in the feds. I pled out, I left, went back to the feds, and ended up, because in my PSI, they had the history of the robbery. They scored me and sent me to a medium high up in Sheridan, Oregon, and I ended up doing my time there. The good thing about it was in a medium high, no one qualifies for a year off in a drug program, so I went right into the program. So I basically was able to get the maximum amount of time off for the program. And then I came back and I did my 6 months halfway house and got on with my life.
Do you think they gave you too much time being a first-time offender and it was only 1 kilo of cocaine?
I mean, based upon the laws, that's the highest sentence you could get in the United States, period. You couldn't get more than 60 months. My guideline range was below the 60, but because I couldn't break the 60 months, I just had to get the 60, So, I mean, it was basically the highest sentence at that time. I mean, in the United States for a 1 kilo first offense. It's not a long sentence per se. I was with guys facing 20, they're getting life, like old timers from Hawaii. One of my friends got 27. My real line from the Bay Area got 20 years, like later on another case, an ICE case here in Hawaii, some other dudes told on him. And so at the time I was like, I felt kind of stupid. Like, I wasn't gonna cry about 5 years. And I was young. I was like, I just wanted to get in, do my time and like get my stripes, I was like, oh, I'm fucking solid. And so I was kind of naive. Looking back, I could have went to trial and beat that. I could have beat that case. I mean, I could have beat it.
Which one, the armed robbery or the cocaine?
No, the armed robbery too I could have beat. But at the time, it didn't make any sense because they're going to just run it concurrent. And I was taking that risk, So, but the cocaine one, I'm positive I could have beat it looking back. Yeah, based on the discovery and the tapes that they had and stuff like that. It was a weak case. It was just basically one guy that was going to testify against me. I mean, it's happened in the feds before. One dude has testified, somebody's got convicted, but you know, in that case, the dude wasn't a very reliable witness. I think I could have beat it.
But what they would have done is they would have said you're facing more than 5, right? If you want to take it to trial,
Oh yeah.
you're
So,
facing now 10 maybe or 20.
yeah, so that's a good point. So my sentence was the highest for a pleading out. So if you were to go to trial, then you're looking at possible obstruction, you know, if you take the stand, I mean, all kind of different things. But you're not going to get your 3 points off for pleading guilty in a timely manner. And then, you know, if I had qualified, I would have got 2 more points for the safety valve, broke the mandatory, I would have got 37 months. So it was a couple more years. I basically did about a year more, you know, for that.
Now, how much was a kilo of cocaine back then here in Hawaii?
At that time, it was like 60, 70,000. And that's the reason why it was worth the risk. I was like, you know, I was like, you know, so I said, just see what's up, you know, and so I just gave him the money. But, you know, I mean, it's over. It's been 18 years, so the statute's gone. But I had a partner in that case, and you know, I went down for that. You know, he stayed out, and me and him were half on that. And you know, it was just we were just gonna go half, you know, see how it went, and it didn't go good. It didn't work out. So that was it. Yeah.
Thanks for watching StreetTV.net. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button below and click the bell to receive alerts and notifications. Feel free to comment below so you can give us your feedback, and be sure to watch the 2 related episodes to the right. If you want to support this platform or follow us on social media, visit the links in the description. And thanks for watching StreetTV.net.